The message arrived at 6 a.m. Plans changed. You're not coming along. I'm Henry Collins, and I just shelled out $25,000 for their family getaway. For 2 years, my daughter-in-law, Sophie, had viewed me as the awkward family member who couldn't match their status. She noticed the sturdy boots, the aging pickup, the plain attire, and concluded I didn't fit her upscale crowd. What she didn't realize was that 3 years back, I'd sold my building firm for $8.2 million. She assessed my finances based on my footwear. Huge error. Rather than dialing to dispute it, I took an action that shifted everything in 90 seconds. If you're viewing this, please hit subscribe and share where you're tuning in from. Because this tale shows how a single call at Silverstone International Airport transformed a family trip into a profound lesson on respect and why you must never judge someone by appearances. Let me rewind 2 years. That's when the behavior began. My wife Margaret had recently succumbed to cancer. 35 years together, vanished. Ethan, my son, was attempting to support me through the grief. But Sophie, his spouse, had her own vision for our family dynamic. The initial hint was at Christmas dinner 2022. Sophie placed me at the children's spot, not beside my grandson Oliver, who's 8, but with her adolescent nephews glued to their devices all evening. When I questioned Ethan later, he dismissed it. Sophie manages the seating, Dad. Then the presents at Christmas 2023. I handed them a certified check for $5,000 to help with their home loan. Sophie gifted me a $20 card for a hardware store. The implication was obvious. You're the fixer-upper. Stick to your role. But the true eye-opener was at Ethan's birthday gathering last summer. Sophie was chatting with her reading group pals on the deck. I was repairing their faulty fence entrance once more, at no charge, when her words drifted through the open window. Poor Henry simply doesn't grasp our way of life. She mentioned Ethan feels duty-bound to involve him, but truthfully, he puts everyone on edge. It's evident he's unfamiliar with accomplished folks. Her companion inquired, "What's his job?" Used to be a builder. Manual labor all his days. Drives that outdated, embarrassing vehicle. Sports the same rugged boots to every occasion. I keep advising Ethan we require limits. I lingered there, gripping my toolkit, as they chuckled. These ladies had no inkling I'd funded the deck they occupied, the barrier I was mending, the initial payment on the residence they enjoyed. You see, after Margaret passed, I'd been discreetly aiding Ethan and Sophie beyond their awareness. Their house payment, $3,400 monthly. I'd covered it since Ethan's tech firm downsized him in early 2023. Sophie believed their reserves were stretching further than anticipated. She was oblivious that her father-in-law was sustaining them. The hospital costs, when Oliver fractured his arm, $8,000 outright. I passed it to Ethan in a sealed packet. Instructed him not to fret over repayment. Sophie never probed the source. Their nuptials 5 years prior. I issued a $45,000 check for the location since Ethan's salary couldn't handle Sophie's ideal ceremony. She selected the priciest spot in town. Never expressed gratitude. But this truly stung me. Whenever I appeared at family gatherings, Sophie would subtly highlight our differing class levels. She'd remark on my outfits, my vehicle, my straightforward perspective, always with a charming grin, as if offering advice. "Henry, perhaps you'd prefer skipping this one at home," she'd suggest for supper events. It's mainly Ethan's professional contacts. Quite formal. Or my top pick, "No need to chip in for the wine collection, Henry. We understand funds are limited on a set budget." Set budget. I had more cash in basic accounts than many encounter lifelong. Ethan began excusing me. "Apologies, Dad's delayed. Likely switching from his labor gear. Dad isn't into upscale eateries. You know Dad's stance on gadgets." It felt like observing my son diminish me gradually. And I permitted it, believing harmony outweighed self-respect. The tipping point ought to have been when Sophie overlooked inviting me to Oliver's school performance or when she replaced the locks without providing me a copy, despite my house sitting during their trips for 3 years. Yet I stayed silent, continued issuing payments, kept appearing for repairs or bills. I figured with enough patience and giving, Sophie would recognize family surpasses status. I was mistaken. The getaway to Turks and Caicos was meant as my peace offering. Sophie had been sharing endlessly on social media about craving a proper escape after Ethan secured his new position. She raved about Blue Haven Resort, displaying images to all. "It's the spot for influencers," she'd claim. $2,500 per night, but justified. I calculated it. 5 evenings for 3 households, Ethan's, Sophie's folks, and her siblings group, 8 in all. Including airfare, resort charges, and excursions, nearing $30,000. Ethan phoned me in November, sounding beaten. "Dad, Sophie's fixated on this venue, but we can't swing it. Not with the loan and Oliver's tuition. What if I assisted?" I offered. "Dad, you don't get it. This isn't a tent outing. This is major funds." "How major?" "25 grand at least for the week." I overheard Sophie behind. "Tell him we'll sort an alternative. Perhaps a fine lodge in the desert." That evening, I contacted Blue Haven Resort personally. Chatted with their elite host, a lady named Isabella Carter, who recalled me from a work visit in 2019, when I still led Collins & Sons Builders. "Mr. Collins, delighted to connect again. Planning another visit?" I reserved it all. 3 sea-facing rooms, premium flights for 8, exclusive transport, wellness vouchers, everything. $24,900. Charged to my elite card, confirmation to Ethan. His reply texted swiftly. "Dad, what have you done? This is excessive." I rang him. "It's taken care of. Early holiday cheer." "But Dad, this is wild. You can't manage this." That line once more. "Can't manage this." From my son, whom I'd secretly backed financially for 2 years. "Ethan, I wish to do this for us all. Your mom would have adored watching Oliver craft sand structures on that shore." That touched him. Margaret had always yearned for a lavish seaside break, but we were occupied expanding the enterprise. When we could, she was too ill to journey. For 3 weeks, I was the champion. Sophie even embraced me when Ethan shared. Uploaded a post on social about kin kindness with a resort site snap. No tag for me, naturally. Still, I envisioned the journey. Guiding Oliver in snorkeling, dining across generations at oceanside spots. Perhaps Sophie would see I'm more than the rough builder she wedded into. I purchased fresh outfits. Not extravagant, but neat slacks and collared tops sans stains. Packed decent footwear over boots. The eve before leaving, sleep evaded me. I pondered Margaret, how thrilled she'd be at our unity, how she'd cherish Oliver's awe at the pristine waves. But another thought nagged. A persistent doubt that I was purchasing what ought to be granted. Respect, belonging, simple courtesy from my son's partner. Indeed, the true risk wasn't the $25,000. I'd recouped that via investments in 3 months. The risk was persisting as a pity case in my kin. If I allowed the trip to proceed as set, with me as the thankful sponsor glad for scraps, it'd cement the dynamic eternally. I'd be the kin bank, for crises, handy for big buys, but not truly kin. Not truly accepted. Ethan had begun calling me generous in messages to Sophie's relatives. My dad's being truly generous here. Not my dad aimed to spoil us, or my dad figured we'd love this jointly. Generous like a remote kin splashing cash from remorse or solitude. And perhaps that's precisely Sophie's view. The isolated widower frantic to purchase entry to their ideal suburban existence. Departure morning, I was stowing my bag in the pickup when my device vibrated. Group message from Sophie to the clan. Thrilled for our escapade. Eager to create moments with those dearest. 8 on the journey, 7 in the chat. Then it hit. I'd approached this wrongly. I wasn't funding a break. I was funding a teaching. The query was who'd learn. They were soon to discover the real power holder. The initial clash occurred at Ethan's yard cookout 3 weeks prior. Sophie's parents attended with her siblings, kin, and neighbors, around 20 folks. I'd handled the barbecue gratis as ever when Sophie's dad discussed the holiday agenda. "This Turks and Caicos lodge seems amazing," he noted, flashing pics on his mobile. "Had to be pricey. Lucky Ethan's thriving at his fresh role." Ethan glanced at me. We'd vowed to hush my input. Let them think it's his splurge. I agreed and turned the patties, but Sophie had alternate intentions. "Actually, Henry covered it," she declared to all. "The whole thing. $25,000. Chatter halted. Folks pivoted to gawk at me, in my casual garb, spatula in hand. "That's remarkably kind, Henry," stated Mrs. Whitaker, Sophie's mom. But her voice implied she pondered a retired builder's source for such sums. Sophie pressed on. Henry pushed to pay. "I warned Ethan it was overkill, but you know how elders cling to expenditures. Elders stubborn in front of 20 attendees. Henry likely scrimped for ages on this." Sophie went on. "It's quite touching, really. His method to remain linked to us. Touching. Like a charity endeavor. I mean, we could have managed it soon," she hastened. But Henry desired to add. "We avoided offending by declining." Each phrase pierced. She'd flipped my present into their benevolence. Cast me as the eager in-law pleading for acceptance via funds. Ethan shifted topics. "Dad, these patties aroma fantastic." But Sophie's sibling Chloe chimed. "Such a thoughtful act, Henry. I get how tough it is to feel relevant post-retirement." Relevant? Lord. Particularly when unaccustomed to the world Ethan and Sophie crafted, Chloe added. "It must overwhelm." I set the tool aside, eyed Sophie. "What world?" "You know," Sophie replied, chuckling uneasily. "The business realm, mixers, club affiliations. Unlike your background." "Unlike how?" "Just varied networks, varied norms." Ethan interjected. "Dad, not now." "No," I stated calmly. "I'd like clarity on norms." Sophie's tone turned patronizingly kind. Henry grasped that when Ethan's peers encounter the kin, impressions count. These folks handle high-stakes choices. They spot details like appearance. Appearance. I wore tidy denim and a collared shirt. Identical to Ethan's. "What in my appearance bothers you?" "Not bothers per se. It's just, you're great, Henry, but that old vehicle. You clothe functionally. You chat builds and gear. Ethan's superior might miss that our kin spans." "Spans? Our kin? So, the 25,000 I expended shows what?" Sophie's cheeks reddened. She hadn't foreseen resistance. "Not my intent. For it seems you're implying I'm fit to bankroll your world but not join it." The gathering fell utterly quiet. Youngsters splashed in the water, but adults tuned in. Ethan positioned between. "Dad, ease up. That's not her meaning." "Then what's her meaning?" Sophie regained poise. "I'm noting cash isn't all, Henry. There's learning, refinement, proper conduct in settings." "Refinement?" "Yes, like grasping drink menus or utensil choice or debating topics past local build approvals." Each term aimed to wound. She'd hoarded these views for months, awaiting deployment. "I understand," I replied. "So, at Turks and Caicos, should I dine with staff? Avoid shaming you among refined visitors." "Henry," Ethan snapped. "Enough." But I addressed Sophie, noting her conflict between agreeing and knowing 20 witnessed. "Perhaps I should remain behind," I suggested. "Let you savor with fork-savvy folks." "Not needed," Sophie rushed. "We desire you. Just figure observing interactions there could help." "Absorb it. Absorb it. Like her project. You want me to drop $25,000 for a course in non-embarrassment? Henry, you're distorting." "Am I?" "Sounds like fund your world, then vanish. Cover the trip, then lurk while you mingle with polished types." Ethan seized my arm. "Dad, inside chat." But unfinished. "Clarify, Sophie, what must I do for your refinement level?" She'd cornered herself. All eyes on her. Her folks, sibling, locals. Apologize or escalate. She escalated. "Frankly, Henry, begin by seeming at home beyond a build zone." The statement lingered like haze. 20 heard her pigeonhole me. Heard her detail her view. I nodded deliberately. Nice knowing my place. Then I entered, leaving her to justify to an awkward assembly. Next day, a call hinted the tale's close. "Mr. Collins, David Lawson from Lawson Contracting Group. Issue with the Oak Ridge Plaza downtown venture. Client demands you specifically." I lounged on my rear deck, still fuming from the cookout shame. "David, retired 3 years. Aware, sir, but $40 million billed with base problems. Client learned of your Brightview Medical Center effort, wants your input. Offering $50,000 for 2 weeks guidance. $50,000 for 2 weeks, exceeding yearly earnings for many. Client: Whitaker Development Group. Constructing that upscale retreat on the Peak. Whitaker. Matching Sophie's mom's surname. Likely unrelated, but the irony struck me. I'll consider it, David. Mr. Collins, respectfully, they need a decision today. This project could define legacies. Your reputation still holds major sway in this field. After hanging up, I mulled over David's words. Your reputation holds sway. In construction, Henry Collins stood for quality, trust, projects completed on schedule and within budget. But in Sophie's eyes, Henry Collins spelled embarrassment. That afternoon brought another clue. I was at the bank depositing the Lawson contract payment when James Porter, the branch manager, noticed me in the queue. Mr. Collins, skip the line. Come to my office. James had managed my business accounts for 15 years, witnessing my journey from modest home builds to major commercial deals. He was among the few aware of the exact sum from my company's sale. How's retirement? He asked, shutting his office door. Complicated. Heard you're treating the family to a lavish getaway. Well done. How'd you know? Your daughter-in-law was here last week, inquiring about transfer caps. Mentioned you were funding a resort trip. She seemed stunned by the figures involved. Sophie had been probing my finances, trying to unravel how I could afford the vacation. What did you say? Nothing specific. Just that transfers over $50,000 need extra paperwork. She asked if that was typical for accounts like yours. James paused. I think she was digging for details on your balance. I told her privacy rules block me from sharing any client's financials with others. But Henry, she was genuinely shocked you were handling such sums. That evening, another call came. From Oliver's soccer coach. Mr. Collins, just wanted to thank you again for the team jerseys. The kids adore them. I donated $5,000 for new uniforms last month, anonymously, but the coach pieced it together. Did you tell anyone? I asked. Just Ethan, at pickup yesterday. Mentioned what a generous granddad Oliver has. Ethan seemed surprised you hadn't shared. Naturally, Ethan was caught off guard because Sophie's narrative painted me as the scraping-by retiree needing their tolerance. She'd never imagined I was quietly funding my grandson's activities. The final piece fell that weekend. While clearing my garage, I found Margaret's old jewelry box. Inside was our financial advisor Laura Mitchell's card and a note in Margaret's handwriting. For Henry. Remember what we built together. I called Laura Monday. Henry, how are you coping? I know Margaret's loss hit hard. Managing, I said. Laura, if someone researched my finances, what's public? Next to nothing. Your accounts are private. The business sale was structured to limit public traces. Without insider access or a private investigator, they'd only know you sold Collins and Sons Builders for an undisclosed sum. If they asked you directly, client confidentiality. I wouldn't tell my own kin about your portfolio. I was a ghost, unseen in plain view. Sophie saw the boots and old truck, never digging deeper. She didn't know she'd married into wealth. Real wealth. That's when it hit me, a realization that changed everything. Knowledge is power, but hidden knowledge is a game changer. The airport showdown unfolded as I dreaded. I reached Silverstone International Airport at 7:30 a.m., hauling my worn duffel from my pickup's bed. The parking area buzzed with vacationers, families stacking pricey bags on carts. Ethan's crew waited at the departure curb with enough luxury luggage for a month's journey. Sophie's parents and her sister's family had checked in, gathered near the first-class counter, all in matching outfits and high spirits. I approached with my loan bag, in clean jeans and a new collared shirt bought for this trip. Sophie glanced at me, her expression souring. Henry, she said, loud enough for all to hear. You can't wear that on the plane. What's wrong with my clothes? They're very laid back. This is first class. There are standards. Chloe, Sophie's sister, chimed in. Maybe Henry didn't realize this isn't a hiking trip. Laughter from Sophie's parents. Uneasy looks from Ethan. I've got a jacket in my bag, I said calmly. It's not just the attire, Sophie pressed. It's the whole image. Henry, you need to understand we'll be among highly successful people at this resort. CEOs, moguls, stars. They'll judge our family by our appearance. Travelers nearby perked up, drawn to the family tension at the first-class check-in. So, what's your suggestion? I asked. Sophie glanced at Ethan, then me. Maybe you should sit this one out. The words struck like a fist. Sit out the trip I'd funded. Sophie, Ethan said sharply. No, Ethan. It needs saying. Look around. See how others are dressed, how they carry themselves. Henry will stick out for all the wrong reasons. Mrs. Whitaker nodded. Sophie's right, Henry. These resort circles are particular about their guests. Particular how? They expect a certain polish, social savvy. You need to blend in. Sophie's tone turned patronizingly sweet again. Henry, you're wonderful, but you've never navigated this level of wealth and status. You might not grasp the social cues. I might embarrass you. It's not embarrassment. It's about respecting the setting we're entering. Ethan tried to step in. Dad, maybe we can discuss this. No, Sophie interrupted. Henry, I've thought about this for weeks. This resort caters to Fortune 500 leaders, global celebrities, old money families, people who summer in elite locales and winter in luxury. You'll feel out of place. Each word was a precise cut. She'd rehearsed this exclusion, framing it as care for my ease. Plus, Chloe added, the activities are upscale. Wine tastings, yacht trips, golf at elite courses. Not really your thing. Not my thing. They deemed me too plain for luxury. So, you're uninviting me, I said. From the trip I paid for. Sophie's face flushed, but she pushed on. Henry, we're thankful for your kindness. Truly. But maybe this trip isn't the best match. Perhaps we can plan something more fitting next time. More relaxed, less formal. Maybe a cozy lodge or camping. Somewhere you'd be at ease. The family stood, witnessing this public shaming. Sophie's parents agreeing, Chloe smirking, Ethan torn between loyalty and social pressure. Other travelers openly stared, a father excluded by his son's wife at the airport. You want me to drive home? I said, while you enjoy the $25,000 trip I funded. We'll repay you, Sophie said quickly. Eventually. When we can afford it. With what funds? Ethan's salary barely covered their home loan. The loan I'd secretly paid for 2 years. Henry, Mrs. Whitaker said softly. Maybe Sophie's right. You might be more comfortable in a less intense setting. Intense. A beach trip was too intense for the simple builder. I looked at Ethan, my son, waiting to see if he'd defend me or choose Sophie's version of me. Dad, he said quietly, maybe we could plan another trip. Just us, more low-key. That's when I knew my son was siding with Sophie's narrative over our bond, accepting her view of who I should be. I pulled out my phone, calm and deliberate, as I'd handled business crises for 30 years. Henry, what are you doing? Sophie asked. Making a call. To whom? I didn't reply, just dialed the number memorized weeks ago. Blue Haven Resort VIP Services. This is Isabella Carter. Isabella, Henry Collins here. I have a reservation for 8, departing today. Sophie's eyes widened. She assumed I'd used a budget travel site. She didn't know I had direct VIP resort contacts. Mr. Collins, everything's set for your group. Suites are ready. Private transfers await in Turks and Caicos. Cancel everything. Silence on the line. Gasps from the family. Sir, are you sure? It's late notice, with cancellation fees. Cancel it now. I stared at Sophie as I spoke. Her face paled completely. Mr. Collins, that's a $24,900 cancellation. I'll process a refund minus the admin fee. Do it, I said. Henry, wait, Ethan said, grabbing my arm. You can't just. But I continued with Isabella. Cancel the return flight upgrades and spa credits too. Certainly, sir. Accounting will handle the refund immediately. Anything else today? That's all, Isabella. Thank you. I hung up. The family stood in shocked silence. "Henry," Sophie whispered. "What did you do?" "Ensured you won't be embarrassed by me at Blue Haven Resort. You cancelled our trip." "I cancelled my trip. Feel free to book your own." That's when panic truly hit. The moment everything shifted. It began with an unexpected voice. "Mr. Collins." "Henry Collins." I turned. A woman in a Blue Haven uniform approached, tablet in hand, professional smile bright. "Hannah Brooks, travel coordinator," she said, offering her hand. "I manage VIP arrangements for Blue Haven. I was here for another client's departure when I heard your name." Sophie looked baffled. Why would a resort coordinator approach us at Silverstone International? "I wanted to personally thank you for choosing Blue Haven again," Hannah continued. "I hope this trip would have been as special as your 2019 visit." "Again?" Sophie's face was puzzled. "You've been there before?" Ethan asked. "The top suite costs $25,000 weekly. The elite villa is $40,000. Mr. Collins has occupied both weekly. Not per visit, per week." Ethan was calculating mentally. "Dad, how much do you really have?" That's when James dropped the line that altered it all. "Well, I can't specify, but let's say the returns on Henry's assets exceed most folks' monthly pay." Returns on assets. Surpassing typical wages monthly. Sophie clutched Ethan's arm. "What kind of returns?" James seemed uneasy. "I truly can't." "It's fine, James," I said softly. "They'll learn soon enough." I retrieved my wallet, not the faded leather one I normally used, but the slim black holder for my pickup storage. I passed Sophie my exclusive Amex card. She eyed it like it was hazardous. "What's this elite card?" Hannah noted, identifying it right away. "Known as the Black Card too. Usual minimum spend is around $500,000 yearly. $500,000 in annual charges." Sophie's hands trembled. "Henry, this confuses me." James intervened. "Perhaps I can explain." "Henry, if you allow." I agreed. Collins and Sons Builders sold 3 years prior for $8.2 million. The figure struck the group like a wave. Sophie staggered back. $8 million. Ethan murmured. "0.2, James clarified. "But that's merely the firm's sale. Henry's asset collection, property investments, and cash reserves push the overall worth to." He eyed me inquiringly. "They can hear it," I stated. "Slightly above $15 million. $15 million. The phrase resonated in the now hushed airport area. Sophie was breathing heavily. $15 million. Modest figure, James added. "Market changes, you get it?" Hannah was connecting dots. "Mrs. Collins, when you voiced worries about your father-in-law blending at Blue Haven, what precisely concerned you?" I believed he was." Sophie couldn't complete it. "You believed he was broke," Chloe stated plainly. Sophie nodded, eyes welling up. Ethan gazed at me. "Dad, why keep it secret?" "You never inquired," I replied plainly. "You presumed I was scraping by, so I allowed the presumption. But the aging pickup, the labor outfits. I enjoy my pickup. I'm at ease in practical attire. Wealth doesn't require altering my core self." Hannah scanned her device. "Mr. Collins, checking your stay records. You've invested over $200,000 at Blue Haven in 5 years. $200,000. Sophie wept now, grasping her error scale. "Henry," she murmured, "I was clueless." "No," I responded steadily. "You had a notion. You pegged me as below your elite group. You viewed me as a pity project." James grew uneasy with the kin tension. "Henry, I ought to catch my flight." "James, one thing more. When Sophie visited the bank questioning my transfers, what did she seek exactly?" James glanced at Sophie, then me. "She wondered if you were cashing out retirement funds for the trip. Said she feared you were overspending beyond means." Beyond means? Even post my $25,000 outlay, Sophie thought I was stretching thin. I assured her otherwise. James went on, but no specifics. "Thanks, James." Once he departed, the group lingered in shocked quiet. Nearby passengers observed openly, catching conversation bits. Hannah spoke up. Mr. Collins, regarding the cancellation. Under these conditions, I'd gladly drop all charges and restore your booking. No need, Hannah. But appreciate it. Certain. I could boost the whole group to the elite villa free of extra cost. Sophie glanced up optimistically, but I declined. I'm certain. Hannah offered her card. Reach out if you rethink. Blue Haven would cherish hosting you once more. After her exit, Sophie spoke. Henry, I'm deeply sorry. I was unaware. You thought precisely what suited you. That I was the shameful needy kin you endured. But had I known, you'd have acted differently. She nodded keenly. That's the core issue, Sophie. You handled me per perceived financial value. That's not true regard. That's scheming. Reality dawned on the whole kin now. Each remark, each snub, each belittling comment, all rooted in a wholly wrong view of my economic standing. Ethan spoke at last. Dad, what's next? I eyed my son, his spouse, then the broader kin who'd spent 2 years seeing me as a load. Now you all grasp what true respect demands. I grabbed my device again. This time, no explanation of the call. First was to my lawyer, Alex Turner. Alex, Henry Collins. Halt a cashier's check payment. Henry, morning. Which one? $100,000 to Oak Ridge Lending. Check 4,471. Papers rustled. That's your son's home deposit. Correct, Henry. Stopping it now means their loan collapses. They'd forfeit the property. I know. Sophie seized my arm. What home buy? I muted the phone. The residence you occupy? I purchased it. You've resided in my place for half a year. Her complexion drained. Impossible. Alex, execute the halt now. Sure about this, Henry? It's a big commitment they'll drop. I'm sure. Post-call, Sophie gasped for air. Henry, what's this? We acquired that home. We hold a loan. You hold a $200,000 loan. The place is $300,000. I covered the $100,000 deposit via a holding firm for your loan approval. Ethan stared. Dad, our home. Indeed, my home. The title lists 51% to Collins Holdings LLC. My entity. You control our home. I control majority stake, allowing me to demand a sale. Next call to James Porter. James. Henry here. Cease auto transfers from my account to Oak Ridge Lending. The monthly for your son's place. Yes. Henry, that's $3,400 monthly. Stopping means default in 60 days. Certain. Halt them. Sophie sobbed. Henry, you can't. We have a kid. Oliver's schooling. You should have considered Oliver before deeming me too shameful for the kin getaway I funded. Third call to my advisor, Laura Mitchell. Laura. Henry. Liquidate the education fund. Which? Oliver Collins's. $50,000. Sophie yelled. You created an education fund for Oliver. Laura, shift to my account. Henry, sure. It's grown 3 years. Yes. Post-call, kin in total chaos. Sophie weeping. Ethan processing the scope. Sophie's folks murmuring urgently. Henry, Ethan pleaded. Don't. We can mend. Mend what? Your spouse's 2-year pity treatment. Her public snub from my funded trip. She was unaware. She chose ignorance. Saw what fit, acted thus. Fourth call to David Lawson of Lawson Group. David. Henry Collins on the Oak Ridge Plaza gig. Henry, accepting. Yes, with a stipulation. What? My name bold on site signs. Project advisor. Henry Collins, Collins and Sons. Odd, but for $50,000 consulting, doable. Do it. Hung up, faced Sophie. In 3 months, downtown sign with my name. Henry Collins, build advisor. If your polished pals wonder my work. Sophie gasped. Henry, please, discuss. We can repair our bond. Our bond wasn't shattered, Sophie. You deemed it unworthy. But I lacked money knowledge. Precisely. You mistreated me thinking poverty. Now wealth known, you seek repair. Ethan advanced. Dad, what do you seek? What writes this? I viewed my son, raised, backed, aided quietly 36 years. I seek respect, Ethan. Not for wealth. For being your dad. You have it. Do I? Half-hour ago, you allowed your spouse to bar me from the kin trip. Ethan silent. Henry, Sophie murmured. How to mend? You don't mend. You face choice outcomes. What outcomes? You sought me from your elite circle. Wish granted. I hoisted my duffel, heading out. Henry, where? Ethan shouted. Home to my actual property. Fallout hit as foreseen, but swifter. By Tuesday morn, Ethan called hourly. Dad, talk. Sophie wants proper apology. She had 2 years. Chose shame instead. But Dad, house loss. You couldn't sustain it, Ethan. Couldn't manage deposit, nor loan sans aid. First hit Wednesday. Sophie's reading pals rang, hearing airport tale via Chloe, who shared eagerly. True your father-in-law's millionaire, they probed. He owns your place. Sophie tried spin, posted vague social note on kin mix-ups and hasty judgments. But her guarded elite group knew. Thursday, legal notice arrived. My lawyer filed to enforce property sale for ownership breach. Ethan had 30 days to acquire my 51% or leave. Henry, Ethan said evening call, you're ruining my kin. I'm guarding mine. Difference. Oliver wonders why move. Tell Oliver his mom Sophie found Grandpa Henry unfit for kin trip, so Grandpa deemed them unfit for his home. Dad. Harsh. Harsh was her airport exclusion before 20. Harsh her sophistication lectures. Friday, loan issue. Sans my payments, Oak Ridge sent default warning. Sophie called tearful. Henry, please, till we sort. Sort what? You lack $3,000, let alone $3,400 for loan. Ethan's raise coming. 5% raise. $300 pre-tax. Need $3,400. We'll add jobs. Sophie, you're marketing $42,000 yearly. Ethan's software $68,000. Expenses $4,800 monthly. Math fails. Weekend, social fallout. Sophie's folks dodged calls post realizing they joined shaming a millionaire. Chloe posted online on kin turmoil and assumption lessons, as insightful sibling who foresaw. Monday morn, Ethan at my door uninvited. Dad, moving to Sophie's folks. Why share? 'Cause Oliver asks why Grandpa Henry stopped loving us. That stung deep. Oliver 8. Innocent to adult respect clashes. I love Oliver. Not about him. Then cease punishing him for Sophie's errors. I eyed my son at the threshold of my built home, urging rethink on earned repercussions. Ethan grasped the airport event. Sophie aired. Sophie showed true self. After 2-year slights, endless status digs, burden treatment, she barred me from my paid trip. She's regretful. Regretful for exposure. For money ignorance. Not treatment. Tuesday, crisis peak. Sophie called 6 a.m. weeping. Henry, I'm expecting. I sank down. What? 10 weeks. Planned vacation reveal. Hence stress for perfection. Expecting another grandkid. Matters complexified. Henry, please. I admit wrong. Treated you awfully, but new baby, can't raise 2 at parents. I shut eyes. Margaret would have urged aid. Stressed kin priority. But Margaret would have horrified at Sophie's acts. Demanded true shift, not finance-driven sorries. Sophie, pregnancy doesn't wipe 2-year disrespect. I know, but talk. Forge path sparing Oliver's world? What suggest? Kin therapy. Honest respect, boundary talks. Sincere sorry, beyond words. I reflected on Oliver, my unborn grandchild, and the line between justice and vengeance. One meeting, I said at last, all 3, Sophie, Ethan, and me. Prove you grasp what went wrong and how to mend it, then we'll discuss terms. Terms. Conditions for rebuilding our bond. Starting with respect. Wednesday we held that talk. The discussion took place at my kitchen table, where I'd penned the check for their nuptials 5 years prior. Sophie looked drained. 2 weeks of financial strain, social shame, and pregnancy strain had worn her down. But for the first time in years, her gaze held something new. Not scheming, not judgment, but a hint of comprehension. "Henry," she said softly, "I see my mistakes clearly. Tell me, I judged you by looks and assumptions. I treated you as lesser while you supported us. I made you feel like an outsider in your own kin. A beginning, but I needed more. Why act that way?" Sophie inhaled shakily. "Insecurity drove me. My friends had families with clear wealth status. I wanted ours to mirror that. I thought your difference tarnished Ethan and me. So, I was the issue. I decided you didn't match my desired image. That was wrong. Terribly wrong." Ethan spoke up. "Dad, we want to rebuild our tie. What does that look like?" I'd pondered this for weeks. What did I truly seek? "Respect," I said plainly. "Not for my wealth, but as your father, your family." "What's that practically?" Sophie asked. "Including me in family choices impacting me. No assumptions about my finances. Treating me as a valued kin, not a burden or embarrassment." "And financially?" Ethan asked. "I'll reinstate Oliver's and the new baby's education funds. I'll cover the mortgage until you're self-sufficient. But Sophie, secure a job contributing significantly to your home." "I can do that. House ownership remains split. You'll earn full control over time through steady respect, inclusion." They accepted my terms, not from lack of options, but because they saw what they nearly lost. 3 months on, Oliver asked me to teach him carpentry tools. Sophie enrolled him without fretting over her polished image. That's when I knew we'd be fine. If you're watching, please subscribe and share your location. Sometimes the greatest lessons cost exactly what you can afford to lose.